Hi, my name is Rohini Beer. I'm an immigrant, mother, actor, and storyteller who understands firsthand the courage it takes to rebuild life in a new country. This show is a celebration of women among us, the silent fighters, the dreamers, the survivors, with real stories, real struggles, and truly inspiring stories. Today, I am introducing you to a woman who arrived in Toronto 25 years ago with two young children and a dream. Her story is powerful, and she's living proof of what determination and resilience can create. Today, I want you to hear her story. I want to introduce you to my friend Anuradha Vij, who we lovingly call Anu. Anu, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Rohini.
Thank you for being here. Anu, today you are a very successful woman. You are like a global marketing head of a very, very successful and a top grade company. But if I had met you 25 years ago, what would I see?
What you would have seen was a young Anu who was very excited and hopeful, open to change and learning, and somebody who had come in with very rosy eyes. I was really, loving the fact that we were moving to a new country in the West, and I really wanted to imbibe everything from here.
So, Anu, what were those early days like with young children in a new country?
The early days were tough, Rohini. There's no doubt about it. We came from all the comforts and the luxuries that we all have back home, and the reality slowly hits that you don't have that here. You have to work for it. I was, of course, my kids were younger, so I was trying to get them, into the local schools. We had to get a rental. Credit history is difficult. Obviously, driver's license. I got failed my driver's license 5 times, driver's test, and I was feeling a little down. But then I would look at my children enjoying their school, going to their camps, and looking at them loving being here actually helped me also feel better about the country and not look at the negatives. So apart from that, as a family unit, actually, Rohini, we became much closer. We only had each other here, and we realized the value of that, being together. So, things like on weekends, we would take the barbecue and go to these beautiful national parks that Canada has, and just, spend the day there and, really admire and take in all the natural beauty of Canada rather than focus on the hardships and the sort of negatives.
As you were getting integrated into the system and enjoying your life here with the kids and everything, I'm sure work must be in the back of your mind too. So how did that happen for you? How did you integrate or plan your to get into the workforce?
Again, Rohini, it wasn't easy. I mean, you look different to start with. I didn't realize the work culture here was a lot different from what I had experienced back in India. I had to really perk up my communication skills. People here are very well versed with the language. So I made my share of faux pas at work. Once I had a male colleague who I wanted something done from a project, and I told him, "Hey, if you do this for me, I'll buy you a drink." I didn't realize that I was using these words rather loosely because he took it seriously. He did the project, and then that evening he gives me a call and he says, "Hey, when are we going out to have a drink?" So I was so taken aback. I wasn't prepared for this. So I realized that, I need to use the right language to be able to do business here and get into the workforce and be part of the workforce. Outside of that, of course, there was I tried very hard to sort of go to conferences, women conferences. Again, you have to tell yourself all the time that, you can do this because that's what it takes, really. You look so different, your experiences are so different, and you don't want to stick to your culture from what you brought because it just doesn't work. You need to integrate, and then make them feel like you're one of them. One another example I was in a woman in IT. There were a lot of women in IT that I used to find, and I said, you know what, I'm going to set up monthly martini nights, just to get everybody together, talk about non-work stuff, and get
That's
to know,
amazing.
build
Yeah.
my network. So
Yeah.
I tried a few things that I think helped me succeed.
What is the hardest part that nobody talks about?
Yeah, the hardest part that nobody talks about that I'm actually going to tell you is really down from the bottom of my heart is the guilt. You know, the guilt that you go through leaving your country, leaving your aging parents and your siblings for a so called better life. Your duty towards them,
Right.
not being able to spend time with them as they are aging, and being perceived as selfish. It's really a very hard, the hardest part about the move. That is coupled with some of the hardships you face when you come in. You know,
Right.
there is no, the financial hardships. I never mentioned this, but my first coat was from a thrift store,
Wow. That's
and
amazing.
I somehow made it work. Of course, there's also, your growing children, their needs, the tantrums they throw as teenagers. My husband got transferred to India for 2 years, and while I was managing them all alone with the job, their tantrums, shoveling
Right.
snow in those very, very
Oh my God.
frigid Canadian
Yeah.
winters, single-handedly dropping them off to their universities, settling them into their colleges. It was hard. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah. But what about uh, how hard was it for you to learn to drive, to get around? Was that an issue too?
I'm kind of a go-getter as a person. It could be due to my birth order. I'm the third of three daughters, the unwanted girl,
Yeah.
and I learned to be a survivor. So I actually had my fair share of skids in the road with, in the deep winters when your car is just skids and you have those accidents and you don't know what to do. But I used to always sort of get over them and keep moving forward.
Or did you get your test first time?
Not at all. It took me 5 times to get my driver's license. And I tell you, I was a little overconfident to begin with,
Yeah.
but it grounded me. It made me realize
Yes.
that you are following rules here in this country that are important
Yeah.
to save
Yeah.
other people's lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's now that you had learned driving and you were kind of settled with your first job and getting your bearings, uh, what was the turning point in your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the turning point was, when I started to get a foothold in the industry. I learned my craft. I became more confident of my capabilities. I started being recognized in the industry as a woman in information technology, in the Canadian marketplace. And then I realized that there's a glass ceiling if I'm just, doing a job in Canada. So I put my hat in the ring for a role in North America that finally grew into a global role. And that's what I'm doing currently as well. And I did two jobs to try and make that work. So I was, I put myself out there. I learned, new things about being a North America resource, and of course, flexible work helped. So this also was the time of COVID. But yes, I think was a turning point when I had great amount of confidence in my abilities, and I was being offered roles, by competitors to join them, or just being
Yeah.
being able to say, yes, I know what I'm here now to
So
stay.
and how many years did it take for you to reach that point?
So yeah, we moved to Canada in 2001, and I would think that kind of happened around the 2016 timeframe. So
Yeah.
16, 15 years
It took
it
you
took
to
me to
when
get there.
things actually started to turn
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely. And I,
So
I had to go through my, trainings, communication workshops to be able to communicate better. But I realized one thing is that if you know your content, you know your subject, you know your craft,
yeah,
then you can present anything about it. It's
right.
when you are not confident of what you are saying is when you have problems saying it.
Yeah. So you had to really um, polish your skill, so to say.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So in that 16 years of struggle where you got established and today you are what you are, what are you most proud of?
I have a lot to be proud of, Rohini, but one of the top things on my list is I'm really proud of my two children and how they've grown up into becoming two really independent young uh, adults, imbibing the Canadian values and being able to make it in this country. Um, Simultaneously, I must say, immodestly, I'm also very proud of myself. I think I came into an industry that I knew nothing about, and I learned and I changed and I adopted, and you know what? I'm here today.
Tell me, what would be your advice today to a younger woman who is starting out work in a new country?
My advice to a woman who is starting out in a new country is to focus on the positives, focus on integrating yourself into the Canadian life. You know, groom yourself in a way that you don't stick out. You know, I always have my hair and nails done, especially from a career perspective. That's important. This is par for the course. Also, I think, you know, recognizing those inflection points in your career and seizing those opportunities without second guessing yourself is important. Like I did, you know, I had this open role in the North America region that I put my hat in the ring for while I was still working a second job within the same company. Um, but I said, you know what, I'm going to do this because this is what it takes to get it to the next step.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you had that drive and motivation to make it to the top.
I think it might be just something to do with my personality, my positive spirit, and also the fact that I never look back. I never look even in fact I never look negatively at a situation. I never think negatively about a situation.
Nice. Yeah, that you like to stay positive. And
Yes,
is
so
that
important.
what would be your success mantra that you live by?
I live by never looking back. As I just said, that is my success mantra. Never look back. Always, you know, look at the glass half full, never half empty.
Beautiful. Stories like Anu's remind us that strength always doesn't make noise. Sometimes it quietly builds a life. Thank you for watching. And if you have enjoyed this episode, do like, subscribe, and share.